Hi, everyone. Sean Walbin with Secure Cyber Defense, and today I am joined by Chad Robinson, who's our Chief Information Security Officer here at Secure Cyber. And we wanted to just take some time today, really, to do a new segment where we just kind of take some of the viewer comments on YouTube and address them.
Just talk about them.
Yeah, let's just talk about them. So the first question we have today is from Busy Lifestyle, about a week ago. And the question was, why should an automatic update be set up? My biggest worry is just as much as an update can fix things, it can also cause back-end issues that were overlooked and have temporary or even worse issues than the previous version didn't. In this case, would it not be smart to scan the network constantly and actually wait maybe a few days or even weeks, depending on the update? I could be wrong, but it seems like updates have gotten worse just as much as they've gotten better over the years. So I'll let you take the first shot at it.
All right. So I would definitely agree with that, right? So
Yeah, I would too.
I think the first thing I wanted to address there is the scanning the network continuously, right? So that's the way to go. If you can set up a vulnerability management program and continuously scan your network, not only are you going to find patches, you're going to find devices,
right?
You're going to find software that's out there. So it really helps you with more than just vulnerability management. It's overall asset inventory.
Sure.
Right.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
If you can couple that into your asset management program, all the better.
Right.
As far as automatic updates, I think there's certainly use cases for that, depending on the size of your IT organization, what you can handle. Overall, we kind of see that people are pretty good at Windows updates, right? That's your laptops, desktops. Whether you're patching those intentionally or you have automatic updates turned on. Yeah, people are pretty good about that.
Right.
Where I see in the field where people struggle is really with the firewalls, the infrastructure, the access points. It's maintaining that gear. SQL, God forbid you have an Exchange server online.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, if you have an Exchange server online, definitely patch that.
Right. And that might be, I think they may even be indicating that they're talking about the Microsoft updates over the years. We have certainly seen, I know I've seen it on Twitter and stuff where, a patch cycle comes through and Microsoft, does an update. And then inevitably a few days later, there's a bulletin or an article comes out that says, hey, don't patch your domain controllers too fast because they're blue screening. So, there's a risk reward thing in there. And even you and I were talking, last week when we were talking about this segment, about how the size of the organization can also be dependent on what answer you just gave, right? So what if somebody out there is a super small business and they've got, maybe a firewall and a couple devices? Well, certainly they could probably put automatic updates on everything, right?
A lot easier to work through issues, when those happen if you have a small shop. But
yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with you on the firewall piece because we've seen recently Fortinet add an automatic update checkbox on the firewalls. And it's because, a lot of you have seen this happening in the news where organizations are getting hit by vulnerabilities on devices that are 3, 4, 5 years old. And that's perplexing to us sometimes, right? And you're like, well, why in the world, how in the world can something like that go that long without being addressed? So I think there's a lot of parameters to this.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, well, what if this, what if that? But to your point, if you're doing continuous, if you move to a vulnerability management program, right, like those things don't fall off your radar.
Right.
Even if there's a reason you can't patch, right now, normally there's ways that you can kind of suppress an alert or, hey, let's put this on our risk register so we can make sure we can follow up. Maybe we can't update the firewall right now because our VPN clients don't support the new version or whatever, right? So there's always a reason, but documenting that and making sure that it doesn't fall off the radar so that, 4 years go by and you're like, oh yeah, that firewall we had out there.
Right. Well, and we also talked about how, vulnerability scanning I've talked about it many times on segments here, that vulnerability scanning, all of a sudden just disappeared for a while. And, it didn't actually disappear. I think it was looked at as this very high-end, very expensive luxury thing that a lot of organizations didn't have the ability to do that. And I know you use a tool here at Secure Cyber. What is the name of that tool?
So I use Connect Secure. So I have quite a few customers in our Connect Secure platform, and it's just that. It's continuous vulnerability management. It's asset inventory, hardware, software, asset inventory. So it's working out pretty well.
Right. So we're not plugging a specific software here. I was just giving an example of how, and that's like vulnerability as a service, vulnerability management as a service,
right?
Which kind of competes with some of the normal stuff that we see out there, like maybe Qualys or Nessus or some of those other tools. So the landscape has changed, is what I'm trying to say is, and I think a lot of those services are easier to do now, easier to get to. And you bring up a really good point about the asset discovery piece. You were given a training today and internally, and we were talking about, just some of the stuff that you're using on the back end for your practice. And I think one of the most important things that a lot of people who might be watching might be saying, this is overwhelming, I don't know where to start. And why would asset management even be important in a vulnerability management program? Well, if you look at the CIS controls, which I normally always point somebody to, and I know you do too, right? If you don't have anywhere else to start with CIS. And one of the main things I like about that is just because know your hardware and know your software are the top two controls, right?
1 and 2.
And they're in order of importance.
Right. So you can't protect what you don't know about, right? So that ongoing asset, management is just a kind of a key part of IT. You got to know what's out there. But for people that, you bring up a good point with like Nessus and those types of scanners, that's just something else in your infrastructure, right? I mean, it's something else that I've seen in the field just get neglected, and the reports are just either running or they're kind of running and they haven't run in a couple months because nobody checked them, right? So that's just something else that needs care and feeding. So if you can consume that as a service and just get the output of the reports, just tell me what I need to patch and I'll go patch it, or tell you why I can't patch it. That's a viable option, I think, for a lot of people. So
I feel like we've went all the way around the question. So I'd like to maybe say, maybe at the end of the day, it depends.
Yeah, I think
because I really do. Like, I don't know busy lifestyle. I don't know, what type of organization that person works for. I don't know if that's a small company, a large company. I don't know the maturity of that organization.
Right.
So I think you just have to take all of those things into consideration before
and you don't have to be all in, right? I mean, maybe your laptops and desktops are auto update and your servers are a little bit more, hands-on.
And I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that in some organizations that have said, I've left my endpoints to automatic updates, and I'm maybe manually handling some of the larger pieces of infrastructure. I've also seen local governments, being impacted very heavily by this question, and a lot of it's because a lot of local government agencies have public safety divisions, so they have police, fire, and EMS,
right?
And those are 24/7, 365, right? So, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I install a patch and I reboot it, and it's a critical system, and it doesn't come back up. So, I really think that is still an issue today. I think that a lot of people maybe don't patch or don't do that because maybe they're just afraid the device won't come back up, or they can't find the right maintenance window, or maybe management's just really picky and really pushes back on that. Have you seen like that? Like, have you seen people say, look, my management just won't let me do this?
I've seen some situations like that. I've mostly seen situations where, things, you've let things go, and then you let it go another month, and the next thing you know, it's 6 months. Next thing you know, it's 12 months.
Right.
And now it's like, where do I even start with this, right? I have a device that hasn't been patched, hasn't been rebooted in 2 years, and now I'm really afraid to do anything with it, right? Because it's a critical piece of our infrastructure, and what if, right? So.
I remember the days where that you'd query a Cisco router and see the uptime, and how everybody would just be like, oh, look at my uptime. This, I've got a router that hasn't been rebooted in 12 years.
Yeah, right.
But, now we're like, whoa, you haven't rebooted your router in 12 years? What version are you on? So,
version 1.
Exactly. Right. All right. Well, that's it for today. I think we, kind of covered a lot of territory there. Hopefully this was impactful or helpful for you. Look forward to more of these segments where we can take, just questions from the audience, and we can just kind of discuss them and enter other opinions. So I appreciate your time today. Thank you, Chad, for coming on. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks.
And hey, let's be careful out there.